南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。那因为sorry now because the time restriction, we will have to summarize the rest, and I try to do it as clear as I can. So we have learned, in order to understand the sensations and the mind, which is governed by sensations. The worldly mind is governed by sensations. Very important to understand. And the sensations are governed by perceptions. We receive what we perceive. And very often when we explain Buddhism, we explain that the Arahat, the Buddha, does not, so to say, receive, does not. Of course, they have a very clear, all the Arahats, all the Buddhas, no matter whether disciple Buddhas or the Buddhas for themselves or the perfectly enlightened Buddha, they all very sensitive. Their sensations are very clear, as opposed to us who are very often subjected to non-clear sensations. They always have very clear sensations. But we explain their conditioning. They literally do not receive. To sense means to receive the object. Lingna. In Chinese we literally translate like that. In English we say sensations, but in Chinese sensation means to receive. This is a much more precise translation than sensation actually. To receive the object means to feel. We can feel that someone is going to come tomorrow. That is not sensation, in a way. Sensation means receive the object either as pleasant, as unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And the mind, the worldly mind, differentiates in according to that. In the sense that we have explained, it is attached to the pleasant reception of the object. It is resisting the unpleasant reception of the object. And it is deluded. It means bored or excited. While receiving neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation. The mind will sing or be excited. And these are also the main obstacles in meditation. So, when we understand the body, we can understand the mind which is linked to the body and grasps the body through the sensation. This is the very important to understand. So the conditioning of a really enlightened person is non-receiving the sensation. By non-receiving the sensation, one becomes liberated from the worldly mind. Very important to understand. But non-receiving the sensation does not mean one does not sense. On the contrary, one senses with utmost clarity, but without grasping. What we really grasp is the sensation. So now the mindfulness of the sensation is explained as experimenting the different types of sensations and letting go. This is the mindfulness of sensations. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Sunyan Shuting, which is the most important scripture on meditation in the Southern tradition, the sensation is divided in so to say, two categories. The sensation with grasping and the sensation with renunciation. By distinguishing clearly these two types of sensation, then one practices the mindfulness of sensation. And here it is explained in a different way, but actually it has the same meaning. To practice mindfulness of sensations means to detach from sensations. And how do we detach from sensations? So we have again the 4 exercises. Just like by mindfulness gone into the body, we detach from the body. So by mindfulness of sensations, we detach from the sensations. And when we are able to detach from sensations, we can detach from the samsaric mind and get closer and closer to the state of perfect balance, to the state of purity. This is what one should understand clearly to understand the Buddhist peculiarity of the Buddhist meditation. So how do we get detached from sensations? Practicing mindfulness of the in-breath and the out-breath. So we have practiced the mindfulness of the body, gone into the body, and due to this mindfulness we have developed shamatha. We developed shamatha through the mindfulness gone into the body. But we have explained this part also has vipassana, also has shamatha. But the other part also has vipassana and shamatha, but in a way it takes it for guaranteed that we have shamatha already. So that when we have shamatha, we can contemplate in depth the impermanent nature of the rejoicing mind, of the happy mind. Now try to have joy or happiness for a long time while being in an ordinary mind, not in a state of samadhi. You will see you won't be able to stay rejoicing for a long time. The rejoicing will turn into non-rejoicing very quickly. Why? Because this mind based on the senses is always changing sensations. And if we hold to these sensations with the non-balanced mind, the pleasant sensation will very soon turn into the unpleasant sensation. We have all experienced it many, many times. However pleasant the sensation may be, when we hold to it, it will turn to unpleasant sensation, sooner or later. So now we have explained the conditioning of the dhyana is a very subtle sensation, and the subtle sensation is much more pleasant than the gross sensation. We have explained the logic behind, because it is based on the subtle touch, and the mental touch is much more satisfying than the bodily touch. The bodily touch can be satisfying for a very short time, but the mental touch can be satisfying for a long, long period of time. Now, this mental touch with the subtle form can be prolonged even for days if you are a great meditator. So for days you can experience the same sensation, the same joy, the same happiness. The worldly mind, of course, is unable to maintain joy, maintain happiness for a long time. If you force yourself to maintain it, the opposite will come. So this is why it is here taken for granted when you meditate on the sensations effectively, you go into the state of dhyana. When you go into the state of dhyana, it is possible to experience joy and happiness for a long, long time. Then, when you have the dhyana, you can turn your mind to the base of the mind, and you will find there the object of dhyana. You will find the mind going to that object of the dhyana, and in that mind you will experience very clearly this sensation of joy, happiness, appearing and disappearing in each and every moment. You will experience very clearly its impermanence. And you can gladden the mind, we have explained before, by shamatha, but also by vipassana. When you have the samadhi of vipassana, you can gladden the mind. Besides, when you observe the object of your absorption at the base of your mind, in the Theravada tradition it is explained as going out of jhana. But in the northern tradition it is explained as practicing vipassana in the jhana. But actually the meaning is the same. Why? You investigate that that object that you investigate while going out of the jhana is of course the object of the jhana, and the mind which goes to that object is the mind of the jhana. But while you in the dhyana, you cannot observe the impermanence clearly. And strictly speaking, when you observe the impermanence, you are using the vitarka, vichara, which are only connected with the lower states of jhana. They are not anymore present in the more subtle states. And the joy and happiness is much more subtle as you go higher. The second dhyana joy is much more subtle than the first dhyana joy. The third dhyana has no more joy. The joy without, the happiness without the joy is much more subtle and satisfying and peaceful. So these conditionings of the mind, then you experience in shamatha and vipassana. In the shamatha, you don't observe their impermanence, but you experience them fully. Buddha emphasizes always this pleasant sensation you should experience fully with the whole body and the mind, completely penetrating each pore of your body with this pleasant sensation. So through the shamatha, you get deep into the pleasant. Then you can tolerate the unpleasant nature of impermanence. But actually, this unpleasant nature of impermanence, when you in samadhi of vipassana, becomes very pleasant in a way. So you observe unpleasant phenomena with a balanced mind. Similarly, when you meditate on the impurities, impurities are very disgusting, but when you contemplate them with the mind in dhyana, you actually contemplate the purity. The impurity you can turn into purity. This is very important meditation, especially in the northern tradition. So this reveals what? This reveals the illusionary nature of sensations. When you understand the illusionary nature of sensations, you understand clearly the illusionary nature of the samsaric mind. This is the special emphasis of the Buddhist meditation. You don't find it clearly explained in any other tradition. And it is very precious. So the first exercise then is related to the experience of the first and second dhyana, which you, by turning mind on the mind which observes the object of the jhana, then will become the contemplation of impermanence. And impermanence of what? Of sensation. Because in that first and second dhyana, the sensation of joy is overwhelming. Therefore, some translate it as a bliss. Then when you see the actually the unstable nature of this joy, then you go to the higher, more subtle experience of happiness in the third dhyana. And the same more subtle experience of the happiness that you first experience fully, you then experience as impermanence by observing the mind which goes to this subtle object you have used for the dhyana. This is how to understand the first two exercises. Then the third and the fourth exercise, very interesting. Even so, they are the same exercises, and it quite often happens, they have a very different explanation. But these explanations are still complementary. It very often happens that you have the same, also in Vinaya, also in the suttas, you have the same, more or less the same text, but explained in a very different way. So let us see how it is explained here. The third exercise, the first and second exercise is the same. No slightest difference here. Now the third exercise is beyond the third dhyana there is no practice of mindfulness of breathing. Thus, because in the fourth dhyana we do not experience the gross breath anymore. Thus, declared and identified as being beyond the third dhyana. Now, if while authentically experiencing this, authentically experiences translates the sikhati or shikshate, he learns to authentically experiencing joy or well-being due to a lapse of mindfulness, there arise such thoughts as I exist, this is myself, I will exist, I will not exist, I will have form. This in Buddhism, this different kinds of doubt. 5 doubts in regard to 5 aggregates, 25 kinds of doubt, explained in Visuddhimagga. Then, and as long as you have no the direct seeing of the object of liberation, these doubts may certainly arise. I will neither have not lack of discernment. Then the volitional discerning factor has been agitated by confusion, and one agitated thoughts manifest and are formed together with arising of craving. The root of agitation, of course, is craving. Immediately upon their arising, one ascertains them with intelligence, and not dwelling in them, one abandons them, dispels them, and removes them. So actually, the third exercise is Chitta Sankara Patisamvedi Asasamiti Sikhati, Chitta Sankara Patisamvedi Pasasamiti Sikhati, while experiencing the mind formations I learn to breathe in and breathe out. And this here is explained, experiencing the mind formations means that you actually get excitement while experiencing these subtle states, and you start thinking, am I this, am I that? Now, in the tradition of the Visuddhimagga, the explanation is you go into different states of sensation, you go back to the rather gross sensation of the mind still affected by the five senses, then you go to the first dhyana, you go to the second dhyana, you go to the third dhyana, you go to the fourth dhyana, and see these all different kinds of sensations. So this is quite different. Then one authentically experiences mental formations, and inhaling upon really refining mental formations, one practices noting the inhalation upon refining mental formations. This refining actually means the sublimating, pasambayam. Pasambayam Chitta Sankharam Asasamiti Sikhati, Pasambayam Chitta Sankharam Pasasamiti Sikhati. While breathing in and out, he learns to sublimate the mental formations. How does one sublimate the mental formations? Again, by experiencing more and more subtle formations, more and more subtle perception and sensation as one goes higher in the dhyanas. So in the fourth dhyana there is no more in-breath and out-breath, there is only the subtle perception of the mental image, of the subtle mental image which one has created on the base of the breath. And again, one sees the impermanence. Here it is when one experiences the mental formations, having experienced these pleasant states, and one doubts, one is excited. Then one removes this excitement by refining, by cooling the mind. So this is how one understands the mental formations. Yaakov, we remember now the mental formations. They are mental formations, they are speech formations, the vitarka, vichara, the applied thought, sustained thought, shinsa, and they are bodily formations, and that is the breath, or vital energies. So here we have learned how one sublimates the bodily formations. Now we learn how one sublimates the mental formations. Actually, the mental formations become only fully sublimated and practically extinct, or almost extinct. This is also a discussion, a problem, in the highest of all samadhis, the samadhi of no perception and no feeling. What is samadhi of no perception, of no feeling? One has to experience, but it is described as a most pleasant samadhi. How the samadhi can be most pleasant, which has no sensations, one has to experience. Actually, it is said that in the samadhi one is almost like a dead, but it really cannot be quite so, because it is also said that Venerable Sariputta will not accept the food from the layman unless he has first entered the state of samadhi, even for a very short time. How is it possible? So, naturally, there is something like sensation, perception, but that perception, sensation is not a real perception, sensation. This is also the very important argument for the alaya consciousness. Alaya consciousness must be still there. So now we go to the mindfulness of the mind, and of course it is the mindfulness of the worldly mind. So the first exercise is just experiencing the mind when I learn to breathe in and breathe out. And in this case, as we see here, one enters into the access dhyana, Wei Tao Ti, Chuang. And then one, in this state, one experiences all different conditionings of the mind. Actually, when you study the meditation as taught in the Abhidharma tradition, you can actually stimulate these different states of the mind, because you have studied. This is the advantage of the studying studying according to Abhidharma, means studying in detail all the different mental factors and factors of materiality. Then you can stimulate all these different conditionings, like an actor on the stage, and produce all these different minds. This is the only way you can explain it. So, in fact, in order to practice in this way, you will have to have practice the analysis of the mental processes as explained in the Abhidhamma. Otherwise, not possible. So this is the first exercise. In the Theravada tradition, you have the 16 types of mind mentioned. here you have 20. Huh? But actually it is the same. We don't need to go into the detail, you can study. Huh? Then the next exercise. Oh, that is not there. Thus it is said, one authentically experiences the mind, and when one inhales, one practices noting that one authentically experiences the mind and the inhalation. One authentically experiences the mind, and when one exhales, one practices noticing that one authentically experiencing the mind and exhalation. Simply saying, sometimes it's a bit confusing, the explanation here. Very simply explained, one learns to breathe in and breathe out while experiencing all these different conditionings of the mind. Mind with desire, mind without desire, mind with resistance, mind without or anger, mind without anger, mind with delusion, without delusion, scattered mind, concentrated mind, the concentrated mind and non-concentrated mind, the superior mind in Theravada and the inferior mind, superior being the mind of the sphere of subtle forms and the formless, and inferior being the mind in the lower, in our sphere of perception dominated by the five senses, and so on. And then liberated mind and non-liberated mind. The liberated mind being the mind free from the five obstacles that we have learned. So this is a way. Now the other two exercises are same exercise, but explanation very different. This is very interesting, and it very often happens. The same scripture, but a very different explanation. When upon authentically gaining inner calm, the mind is veiled by obscurations of dullness and drowsiness. One presents it with one or another uplifting object, the mind apprehended and inspires and gladdens the mind. So simply saying, the next exercise is the gladdening the mind. I learn to breathe in. Gladdening the mind, I learn to breathe out. And here it means gladdening the mind when the mind has a tendency to sink. We have learned. When the mind has a tendency to sink, what does one do? We have already learned. One investigates the object, one gladdens the mind, and one puts effort. These things will uplift the mind. Now, in the Theravada tradition, the explanation is one gladdens the mind again with the help of the first and second dhyana. So it is the subtle object which gladdens the mind, which brings the joy. Here it is, you can combine the two together. Actually there is no contradiction. When the mind is thinking, it's good to gladden the mind. But here is emphasized, you willingly gladden the mind by entering the jhana and see how due to the subtle object, dependent origination, the mind becomes happy. There is no worldly mind without an object. When the object becomes subtle, the mind is experiencing the joy and happiness. Now, when the mind is thinking, one gladdens it. When the mind is excited, we have learned one has to use the samadhi, and we have learned samadhi together with letting go, with upeksha. So the next exercise is he learns while breathing in and breathing out, he uplifting he concentrates the mind. What is the Chinese? It simply means he concentrates the mind actually. Samadaham chitam asasami tisikati, samadaham chitam pasasami tisikati means he concentrates the mind. He learns to concentrate the mind while breathing in and breathing out. One presents it with one or another uplifting object that is in brackets anyway, but actually it means concentrate the mind. In Chinese also, they restrain the mind. This is the word. And again, in the Southern tradition, concentrate the mind means actually, again, practicing the dhyanas. This is how one concentrates the mind, restrain the mind. And finally, while breathing in and breathing out, one liberates the mind. And here it is explained that liberate the mind from the 5 hindrances, from the attachment to the objects of senses, from resistance, from sloth and torpor, from and the excitement and worry, and from doubt. But in the Southern tradition, actually it means liberating the mind from all these different formations, also from the five hindrances, but also from the formation of the speech in the second dhyana, and from formation of the body in the fourth dhyana. And it is emphasized that it is the worldly formation. We have explained there are two ways of purification of the mind: by worldly purification, by shamatha, experiencing more and more subtle object, and by vipassana, penetrating the Four Noble Truths. But here, in the Theravada tradition, it means a worldly liberation. And here it means liberation from the five hindrances. And then it flows into the meditation on the mental objects. And it flows naturally because the first meditation in meditating on the mental object is a meditation on the five hindrances. So it's quite natural. The liberation means liberation from the five hindrances. And then we have again the last four exercises concerned with the mental objects connected with liberation, we can say. And this we have explained in all Buddhist traditions. It is emphasized in order to liberate the mind, you have to understand the whole. And the whole is contained in the meditation on the mental objects. In order to liberate, we have to penetrate the whole. If we don't penetrate the whole, we cannot liberate. So we have to understand the objects of wisdom. It does not mean to that there is other liberation. In order to liberate, we have to understand the objects of wisdom. Otherwise, we cannot liberate from attachment to the money, attachment to the woman or whatever. We can only liberate when we use the objects of wisdom. Whatever you take as the object of wisdom, that will liberate. Which is, then the real objects. The objects of our defilements are actually the concepts. So we have to understand the real objects to liberate. And the real objects are many, but the ultimate object is one. We have already explained in the northern tradition, these real objects, they are taken only as skillful means. They are not explained as the highest realities. Because the emphasis of one real object, which is suchness, and which is non-dual. Very important to understand. That's why meditation very often explained in a different way. One should understand this very clearly. Normally, you do not start meditating on the ultimate reality. First, you understand the real reality, real experience in the world, so as not to be deluded about the ultimate. This is Buddhist approach. Without understanding the world, we will be deluded about the ultimate. We have to penetrate the world to understand the ultimate. This is a Buddhist emphasis. But in the tradition of the teachers of the path of Bodhisattva, the ultimate reality is non-dual. There cannot be any substantial difference between the worldly reality and the ultimate reality. So, from the beginning, you can contemplate the ultimate reality, not in Theravada. So the first exercise is the same. Contemplating the impermanence. Anicca anupassi asasamiti sikati, anicca anupassi pasasamiti sikati. Contemplating objectively, or we can use his language, authentically experiencing the impermanence. I breathe in and breathe out. And impermanence belongs to the 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates is the worldly reality. And 5 aggregates is the whole of the worldly reality. So when we experience the impermanence of the 5 aggregates, we experience the impermanence of the whole in the world. So this is the condition for the process of liberation. We understand the whole as impermanence. And the whole is the whole of the worldly reality. So that's why emphasis in Yogacara, the impermanence is the partial whole. The non-self is a complete whole. Because non-self belongs to all phenomena. The impermanence belongs only to the world, to the 5 aggregates. So, Yogacara, Bhumi Shastra explains the partial attention and the Yuanman, the full, what do you call it, the all-inclusive attention. All-inclusive attention is only the non-self or identitylessness of everything. The impermanence is only a partial because the nirvana is not impermanent, suchness is not impermanent. So when you experience impermanence, here the explanation is slightly different. but actually the meaning is the same. From experiencing the impermanence, in this tradition you can experience the step by step the three elements, three dhatus. Nirvana also in Buddhist tradition is called the dhatu. The dhatu in Buddhism explains the selflessness. When we speak of dhatu, we mean the selflessness. One who sees the dhatus cannot see the self. One who sees the self does not see the dhatus, does not see the elements. Very important to understand. So nirvana is also a dhatu, also element. The non-created element. Everything else is the created element, composed element. That means not composed element, but element related, we can say. Composed is not a good word. In that So what are these domains? He translates the dhatus as a domains. They are domains of elimination, of detachment, and of cessation. And the domain of elimination here explains the path of seeing. The domain of detachment, viraga, explain the path of meditation, and the domain of cessation explain the state of non-learning, the state of abandoning all the fetters. In the Southern tradition, when you study Visuddhimagga, it's quite different. You have experiencing the detachment, experiencing the cessation, and experiencing the letting go. So this is much easier to understand when you contemplate the impermanence. You get detachment. When you get detachment, you have understanding of cessation. And there are two kinds of cessation in the world, and the ultimate cessation. Similarly, you have two kinds of letting go, or two kinds of letting go. Okay, is there any better translation? Patinisaga. Relinquishing, yes. Thank you. So relinquishing is better. So you have worldly relinquishing, and you have the ultimate relinquishing. When the mind literally jumps into the object, towards the object of liberation. It is compared in Visuddhimagga sailors in the ancient times, they used to have the samudakaka, the crows. When the sky is clouded, you don't know the direction, because the direction, they did not have compass, they decided the direction according to the stars. When the sky is clouded, they don't see the direction. So what do? They release the crow, and the crow is circulating around the mast. If it does not see the land, then it comes back. It has no place to go. So they feed it and release it again. Then when it sees the land, kra, 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 so they know the direction. Similarly, this is Patinisaga. You practice relinquishing the impermanence until the mind finds the direction to that which is ungraspable. So you train the process of liberation in this tradition is trained by contemplation of impermanence in a more and more subtle way, by harming the fetters and finally removing the fetters. This is a process. And you have here the same explanation, only explained in a different way, through the path of seeing, path of meditation, and the ultimate liberation after the daimon samadhi, which does not allow any more defilements to arise. So, due to the elimination of obscurations to be overcome by the path of seeing in terms of all formation, there is a domain of elimination. Elimination, I think, must mean prahana, pahana, of abandoning. Abandoning the first experience of abandoning the worldly and turning to the ultimate. Then you practice the detachment by further contemplating the impermanence, by further purifying the mind. And this is called here detachment. Then you finally come to the cessation. And the cessation, again, we have explained, is the worldly cessation and the ultimate cessation. And the ultimate cessation, of course, is ultimate nirodha, is another name for nirvana. Nirodha of what? Cessation of what? Cessation of defilement, cessation of ignorance, cessation of greed, anger, and of, especially of ignorance, non-science. Literally, ignorance means non-science. We have no science to remove the impurities of the mind, as long as we are not enlightened. So this is very briefly explain the essence of our text, and I hope we all experience it, and the best way to experience it is through the non-dual understanding. It is very helpful. Ultimately, the reality is one. So now we can come to the question. We have the whole collection of them. I don't think we can finish them today. Maybe tomorrow. There was some discussion what to do tomorrow. Maybe we can devote some time to the questions so that no one can be disappointed. Is it okay? Or you prefer to have meditation? Maybe we can devote some time to the questions tomorrow. Then do this, what is on the program, the sharing of merit. So we do share questions and answers, little bit, maybe very, very short meditation, and then sharing the merit. That's better than 2 hours sharing the merit. So the first question, would you please teach us how to contemplate the illness and death with the right view? It is very simple. We have to learn samadhi. Then our mind will be in balance. Then it will be easy to face the facts of life. Actually, according to when you study Visuddhimagga, this body is compared to the illness. This body is compared to the hospital. The sensation is compared to the illness. The perception is compared to what? Anyway, the mental formations are compared to the unsuitable means of unsuitable cure. And the consciousness is compared to the sick man. Very wonderful. So, what is this? These are the skillful means to detach. When we detach, we can face illness, and we can face suffering, we can face death without agitation. If we don't have a balanced mind, we can't do it, impossible. And how we attain the balanced mind? Through shamatha. What is the name of this set of Qigong? It's called I Ching Ching. Any videos? Yes, actually I have learned this set of Qigong from my student that you may know, who was very often here, Tzu Yi from Taiwan, who became a nun called Jie Shen. And she is now in Taiwan, but she was for quite some time in Czech, teaching at Prague University. And I learned this set of Qigong from her, and also she made a video. Maybe you can find it somewhere, of this Qigong. Jie Shen, Zi Yi. Jie, the enlightenment, Shen, Da Shen, Xiao Shen, De Shen. I imagine that if I were to meet an Arahat, he would seem emotionless, never surprised, never ecstatic, just always in an equanimous state of beingness. Actually, the Arahat has a lot of humor, and he you can see the pictures here. But he has a humor staying in a perfect state of balance, because he cannot lose his samadhi. So there is a lot of misunderstanding about the Arahat, especially in the Chinese tradition, Tibetan tradition. Arahat actually is a person doing a lot of good, helping a lot of people, having a lot of fun, even sometimes being a little emotional, but he is not attached. He is emotional about the Dharma, about the Buddha. Pure emotions. He does not have any impure emotions. And are there any Arahats among us today? The Arahat will never say that he is an Arahat, but there are still some, I do not know about other countries, but in Myanmar, Burma, there are still some practitioners who are believed by their students to be Arahats, but they will not say they are Arahats. Bhante, what is the object of meditation when one uses in between breaths concentration after letting go of senses? How can one letting go of senses? You cannot letting go of mind. Mind is the base for all the senses. Mind will be there unless you are in the state of samadhi, of neither perception nor feeling. But even in this state there is definitely some kind of a mind, I believe, in Yogacara rather than Theravada in this case. But this mind is experiencing the subject is nirvana and the object is also nirvana. So you cannot abandon the senses, impossible, because mind is a sense. Thus one's past lifetime in meditation is carried on to the next life, Thus one's past life in meditation is carried on to the next life. I do not understand this question, sorry. How you can carry in meditation your past life to experience. Of course you can experience past life in meditation if you learn the supernatural powers. And in this subtle method of vipassana that you learn with the help of Abhidhamma, you can experience some in a rough way the past life even through vipassana. When you know the content and exactly the mental processes, you can use them for seeing the past objects, but this will not be very precise because you have to stay with the nama rupa, with corporeality and the mentality. You should not rely too much on the images. But if you have the supernatural powers, it will be more precise. If you carry what do you mean? How can you practice meditation in past life? Yes, sure. Yes, of course. When you have practice meditation and have some realization or the dhyanas, this experience is very powerful. So now some people, they enter the dhyana naturally. How is it possible? Even now there are such cases. When I was in Myanmar, I was requested to help some novices coming from the North Burma, from the Kachin state. One of them, 18 years old, novice. We explained the meditation on the breath. Immediately has nimitta. He just, what is this? You pay attention to the breath, in breath, out breath, around the nostril. What is this? Some light is coming. Is it stable? Yes, it's always there. So you just merge with it. What is this? And so you do like that. Immediately jhana. After they are such people. They even don't know they are in jhana, even don't know they are in jhana. But this is very rare. Some people practice the whole life. So all depends on our causes and conditions. That is Buddhism. And when you have experienced the realization, like Sotapanna, it's also very powerful experience. So you cannot forget it. When you have a realization like Sotapanna, immediately you can get the jhana on the signless and the desirelessness. If you experience the jhana, immediately you can recollect the object of jhana. This is the advantage of practicing jhana. You cannot forget it. Do the energy channels in Chinese medicine correspond with nadis? Actually, I do not know much about the nadis. There must be some correspondence, but if it is exactly same correspondence, like there are some correspondences between these acupuncture points and the marman, which the Ayurveda explains, so there must be some correspondence, but I'm not sure if they are exactly the same. Probably not. Is there a difference in depth in these systems, two systems? Actually, this detailed analysis of the meridians is only in Chinese medicine. You don't find it. It may have been there in Indian medicine, but a lot of that Indian medicine has been lost. Same like in Buddhism. When India was invaded by Islam, they very often rather burned the books or threw it to the Ganges than to let the mlechas, the non-believers, to study it. So most of this literature is actually lost. Is there an equivalent of Nadi astrology in Chinese? You are going beyond my scope of knowledge. Of course, in Chinese medicine, just like in Indian medicine, astrology plays a very important role. But I myself have not studied it, so I cannot say. But there is in India the Siddha medicine, preserved in South India, which must be having some similarities with Chinese system. It is said to have been taught in China by Bodhidharma himself. Also, it is connected with the martial arts. Bodhidharma is supposed to have taught also the martial arts, but we do not know. It's a legend. Can you explain more in detail the details relate to meditation about between the breath and impurity and purity of mind? Well, actually, this meditation on the subtle breath is very important because it's you can get through it quite easily. The experience of thinking which stops. It is not so difficult. It is very wonderful means for stopping the thinking. And when the thinking stops, naturally the mind is pure. And this experience of mind without thinking is, in a way, the very important in Yogacara. It is kind of crucial opening for understanding the mind. When the mind stops thinking, it's naturally pure. Yet, when the mind stops thinking with this meditation on the subtle breath, you still experience everything very clearly, and you lose completely the idea of subject and object. This is very important experience. Now already time is over. We can see some of these, at least quickly, these questions tomorrow. Let us stop here. Otherwise we will continue and continue. Still quite a stack of them. So let us do short recitation of the Heart Sutra in English this time. Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, while deeply immersed in Pragya Paramita, clearly perceived the empty nature of the 5 skandhas and transcended all suffering. Shariputra, form is not different from emptiness, and emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. So it is with feeling, conceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are empty in character, neither arising nor ceasing, neither impure nor pure, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, there is no feeling, conception, mental formation, and consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, and dharmas. No realm of vision, and so forth, up to no realm of mind consciousness. No ignorance, and no ending of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no ending of aging and death. There is no suffering, no cause, no extinction, no path. There is no wisdom and no attainment. There is nothing to be attained. By way of Pragya Paramita, the Bodhisattva's mind is free from hindrances. With no hindrances, there is no fear. Freed from all distortion and delusion, ultimate nirvana is reached. By way of Pragya Paramita, Buddhas of the past, present, and future attain the supreme enlightenment. Therefore, Pragya Paramita is a great powerful mantra, the great enlightening mantra, the supreme and peerless mantra. It can remove all suffering. This is truth beyond all doubt. And the Pragya Paramita mantra is spoken thus: Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi, Swaha. 愿此功德普及切，我等一众生皆共成佛道。Etavata cha mehi sampatam punya sampadam sabbe deva anumodantu sabha sampati siddhya. Etavata cha mehi sampatam punya sampadam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabha sampati siddhya. Etavata cha mehi sampatam punya sampadam sabbe satta anumodantu sabha sampati siddhya. Aka satta chabumatha deva naga mahidika punyang tanganumoditva chiram rakantu loka sasana. Aka satta chabumatha deva naga mahidika punyang tanganumoditva chiram rakantu desana. Aka satta chabumatha deva naga mahidika punyang tanganumoditva chiram rakantu tumamparang. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So tomorrow, I guess, we do the Qigong as usual. So I understand.